everyone. Welcome back to another episode of K9 Legends and Trailblazers. I have the privilege to have one of my favorite Trailblazers on today. We're going to be talking to Ryan Troester. Ryan was a former Air Force K9 handler and trainer, and now is the co-owner of Frequency Canine Training. How you doing today, bud?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good, man. So I wanna highlight you. I've known you for quite a while. I think about 2009 is when we first
Hmm.
met. 2008. Whenever I went out to Del Rio, where I was a kennel master, and the only bright shining thing in that entire kennel was Ron Troester. Um, and I, sorry for the other guys that were there. It was just, hey, facts are facts. Um, but we developed a relationship since then, and we've stayed in touch throughout the years, whether I was contracting somewhere or working for Homeland Security. I've kind of followed him, he's kind of followed me. And I was really, really happy to see that he stayed in the K9 game because, when you meet somebody when they're very young in their career, and Ryan was very young in his career, you know if they have it or if they don't have it. And he definitely had that and I definitely was happy to see him succeed. But let's talk about you, man. I don't want to talk too much. I want you to tell me, let's go back to when you made that decision to join the Air Force, right? Start us off there.
I think like a lot of people was getting out of high school. That wasn't really didn't really have any plans to go to college. And I mean, just the next thing was to go into the military, which I did have. My dream as a child was to be a game warden. So that was what I wanted to be my whole life. I wanted to, and the Air Force and being in security forces was a way to get the required law enforcement time to then just get out and transition to being a Florida game warden.
Okay, so at some point in your Air Force career, you get these options, right? So it's re-enlist, and then you can go do K9 or you can do CADM, right? That's kind of probably
Mhm.
where you were in that time frame. So obviously you pick K9, right? So you make that trip down to San Antonio to Lackland Air Force Base, actually Medina Air Force Base, and you
Mhm.
start Block One. Block One, for those of you who aren't aware, if you've been watching my show, you know what Block One is by now, but just in case you haven't, Block One is the initial patrol training for all military working dogs handlers when they go through the school. That's where they learn the basics, fundamentals of street work, bite work, building search, scouting, takedowns, all those kind of things. So I want to take you back there. Do you remember who your instructors were for
I
Block
knew you were going to ask this.
One?
So I've been
Yeah.
thinking on it for a day or two. It was Byers,
Steve
Gr-
Byers, yeah.
Steve Byers. I want to say Gernot, tall guy with the
John
mustache.
Goodnight. John Goodnight, yeah.
Okay. And then Bentley was my block two.
Uh-huh.
And I want to say the guy's name was his army sergeant, like Elders or Eldridge.
Eldridge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, you had to. I listened to the other ones and I was like, I can't come on here and not remember them, but I
You
do. I
know,
do remember them.
you knew I was going to ask. So yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I did an interview with John Granat yesterday. John was an instructor uh, for a Marine that passed away in 2007,
Okay.
and John was doing a tribute for him. So I don't want to spoil it and say who it was, but I'll just leave it at that. But I trained with both of those guys. They're great guys. I think Steve Byer went on to be a chief,
Really?
which kind of blows your mind because you're like, wow, that got
He
me.
was very laid back.
Yeah, he was a very laid back guy. He was a great dog trainer. Showed me a lot when I first got there. Matter of fact, I worked under him when I went to the 341st to DTS.
Hmm.
Worked under Steve. So yeah, real great guy. So we get through block one, we go to block two, we learn detection fundamentals. That's what detection is, or block two is. All about detection fundamentals, working all the areas. Most of the times I feel like we worked on drug dogs, but maybe they were bomb dogs, not sure. You get there, you graduate, and you get these amazing orders out to Del Rio, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, great place to be, kinda. It's small, right? Small unit, not a lot going on there, and that's when I met you. So from Del Rio, after I separated out of Del Rio, I got out and I went to the 341st as a civilian. But you continued on, and you went out to Kunsan. So talk to me about Kunsan Air Base.
So real quick, as far as Del Rio, Laughlin,
Yeah,
before I met you,
yeah.
I went to that base when I went to Canine school. I was an A1C. So when I went to Laughlin, I was the only handler. And it
Oh,
was my
wow.
trainer who was Nick Nick Eldridge And
Yeah.
then Jason Wingy was my KM. So as a handler, I had to do everything. I
Wow.
didn't, they never, not throwing anything at them, but I cleaned everything. I did everything
Yeah.
because I was an A1C handler. My trainer was a staff and my kennel master was a tech.
Yeah.
So I remember very vividly that there wasn't a whole lot to do in Del Rio, but when you had your time off, you wanted to go do something. And I got called back in by one of them and there was a turd and it was on the lip of the drain. They called me back in from about I was out at Lake Amistad bass fishing. They called me back in to spray that and then they said, "Yeah, you're good to go now." So I just was my first experience with canine was I did everything. So and I was nobody on the totem pole to them. I was brand new. So I just remember that they were all over me and I was really bad as a handler. I was so bad that I failed my first base certification twice in front of the commander.
Oh,
And
wow.
then they actually they were following me around with a video camera, like the old school ones,
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
went and got one
Showing
of those
you.
from somebody in the unit.
Yeah.
And then I was so bad that they had pulled me into the office, and this was the first time I think that they'd ever leveled with me as people. Like I saw them not be, tech sergeant or staff sergeant. And they asked me legitimately if I was trying to get them fired. And that broke me. That because I was like, no.
You're
And
not that
so
kind of guy, man. Yeah, I know.
but they legitimately had questions on whether or not I was trying to get them fired. Like I was trying to be that bad at this.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's not a very long walk from the unit across to the
Right.
dorms,
Yeah.
but that hurt. So I had to really that was one of the ways that was one of the times where things turned me around and which I did fine in canine school. I was to honor graduate in canine school. So but it was just I don't know what it was.
Well, they
But
must have fixed it before I got there because you were.
huh?
They must have fixed it before I came out as a kid.
Well, before you got there too, I got a tasking to Iraq, or actually I had maybe a tasking to Kuwait. And when I was at the RTC, A-Rod was actually there, who you had on the other day that I saw. And
Yeah.
so he was in charge of us out there. That was my first experience with him, which he was awesome.
Right.
But all of a sudden, like four of us got called in, and they said, "Hey, you guys are actually going to be taking SSD slots, and you're going to get diverted to Iraq." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Well, what's SSD?" And
Yeah.
so they started elaborating on that and what that entailed. So I think if there's one thing that I'll compare it to anybody is that my track record for running into amazing people during my canine career, I don't know that anybody's got the roster that I've had. So when I went there, I went to an SSD house. There's Army engineers and Marines.
Yeah.
So, and that house was Chris Willingham, Chris Knight. So, boom, now I get to have that experience. And then I was actually attached to pretty much at the hip to Chris Knight for about 7 months. So
Nice.
whatever I went over there as, yeah, I was his roommate. I was in the bunk next to him, just me and him. And
Yeah.
so I came back like a little mini Chris Knight.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So so
That
by the
makes sense.
time I ran into you, like the whole trajectory for me had changed. Like I even came back to Del Rio and I was a different animal. I'd just been used to being with the Army.
Yeah.
And then Chris Knight was my mentor for 7 months over there.
Not a
Every day
bad
I had a
mentor.
meal. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what changed me. My girlfriend was actually asking last night, like, what was the trajectory? And I told her that that was a big part of me because I couldn't be bad at this anymore, and I was like Helen Keller. I never spoke. I was a mute.
Yeah.
So that just doesn't get it done over there.
You're not gonna get that with Chris Knight. So Chris, matter of fact, next week, I'm sorry, in 2 weeks, I'll release my interview with Chris.
Oh, really?
And I've known Chris a long time, man, since
Hmm.
'03. Uh, and look, man, if you're in the company of Chris and you don't come out a better person, something's wrong, right?
He
So
taught me how to be a dog handler in the sense that he he's just one of those guys that just, he's got a lot of charisma. He knows his stuff.
yeah,
And like he showed me how to be a man in canine and I wanted to emulate him and be
yeah,
just like him. And that's what kept me when I was out on missions, attached to these units. I mean, that's the only thing that I was able to do that was because I ran into him and I wanted to emulate him. And I wanted to be at that level and be like that. And
yeah,
so I always tell people I was never afraid over there on missions because I had so much confidence from like my kennels did a good job with what we could do out in Texas. The RTC went good for us and then running into Chris Knight. And I mean, I got to train for a month at that SSD house with Willingham, the other Army engineers, the other Marines, and I saw where we stacked as a dog team. So that brought a lot of confidence. And I knew that, you know, you had to have a lot of confidence over there to get things done the best you could with what you could do, what you can control. So
Yeah.
yeah, being attached at the hip with him, forever, I'll always be grateful to him.
And definitely some hot times over there during that time frame.
Yeah.
When Chris, when both Chris's, went out on their deployments, it was a real deal for sure. And
hmm
and I'm in the same boat with you, man. Like those guys just make you want to be better, right?
hmm
They make you want to be a better dog handler, a better human, a better man. So good on you, man. And thanks for circling back to that. So again, I'll tell the audience, when I got to Del Rio, you were squared away, man. Like there was nothing really I needed to do with you other than show up and do some training, set some things up, maybe have a few conversations here and there. But I appreciated that initial contact I had with you and how you were. So maybe that's why we got along because Chris and Chris rubbed off on you. Uh,
Well, and then another Chris, because before I got back from deployment and for almost like a attaboy or a kudos for going over there and doing a good job, they sent me to Colorado Springs twice. And
yeah,
I got to go, went and participated in a competition that Chris Jacobin held. And then I got to go back up there for a decoy seminar. So then, boom, I run into him. And you know this is back before the days of social media. So you hear these names and
right.
these guys in that community are larger than life. Like everybody talked about Jacobin.
Yep.
So when I went up there and met him, they were like, "You're gonna meet this guy. He looks like Luke Ferrigno." And he's a big dude. And so when I met him, he was also a guy where I did the decoy seminar, and it was a dog had bit me in the face on a chest bite. This nasty dog that they'd actually taken from Laughlin named Kelly.
Yeah.
So this dog bites me in the face on a chest bite, comes up and puts two through my lip, and so I have to leave, and I'm getting stitched up, and I mean it was pretty bad. It was pretty gnarly. So I come back, I got this big old duck lip. I mean, and then he is the only one there at the kennels. And
Yeah.
so he goes, how are you? And I said, I'm good. And he goes, he goes, well, come with me. So we go out back and he goes, you ready to catch another dog? And I was like, no. So he goes, well, you got to do another chest bite. And I mean, I got a lip. I mean, it's really bad. The guy did a great job, but I mean, and he goes, well, you have to do it. And I said, you sure? And he's like, if you don't take this chest bite, he goes, you'll never want to
You're
do
never
another
gonna take
chest bite.
another.
And
Yeah.
so not only did he do that to me, he had me do that. But then the next morning he was like, and we're still going to do the incline. It's called the Manitou Incline, the Cog Railroad. So
Yeah.
there I am the next morning at 6 a.m. I meet him there and I'm walking up that thing with blood and sweat and whatever. And so I just ran into people that were
Yeah.
men's men. And then when I ran into you,
Yeah.
you got there and I remember this is that, and I told this to my son the other day, is that I remember you were sleeping in your office because I was a mids guy because you were trying to get on task with everything. And I told him, I was like, I'd come in on mid shift and that your car would be there and the door would be locked. And I'm like, he's sleeping here. Like
Yeah.
he's willing to sleep here and get up and get things going to like get our kennels on track. And
Yeah.
so I was like, that's the kind of people that I was around. So there was no choice for me other than to try to be really good for those people as best I could be.
Yeah, I did, man. And that's I kind of forgot about that, man.
I didn't.
We had an operational readiness inspection coming up and I had just taken over and it was a mess. It was a lot of work to be done. Yeah, no, I remember that. I remember that very vividly. And I remember talking with you and getting you to go do patrols out there around those railroad tracks, man. Nobody had done any patrols on that base, but there's a railroad track running right down through the middle of the base. So anyway, yep, let's talk about you. I'm nobody in this. I'm just hosting it. But that's a good segue for, how your career started progressing, right? So you're still young in the game. You had a lot of good influences early in the game.
hmm
Jackman, his interview post next week.
Yeah.
Then Chris Knight right after that. So it's kind of ironic. And those circles they run big and small at the same time, right? Meaning that K9 is a big, huge network, but sometimes those circles get real small with those intimate connections that we make with some of those that have lasting impacts on our life, man.
Right.
Um, so then let's talk about Kunsan. You go to Kunsan. At that point,
Mhm.
are you still E4 or you made staff by then?
I'm I believe I'm a staff sergeant. Yeah, but I'm a staff sergeant at that point.
So you go over to Kunsan. That's pretty decent sized base. I don't remember how many dogs are over there.
A lot more dog teams than I was looking forward to that because I knew it was a big kennels.
Yeah,
So I think if you really like being canine, you always want to see where you stack and who you stack against.
right.
So I knew there was going to be a lot of dog teams there, and I wanted to see where I stood amongst those teams.
Yeah, or possibly I think maybe 20 teams.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so Kunsan, short tour, remote, nothing after a year. You didn't stay longer than that, right? So from
It
there
was
you go.
it was a big impact on me because my I got there. We had a pretty I don't remember his name. He was literally the KM when I was there for about maybe 2 weeks, and then Ortega got
Robert
there and
Ortega.
was our KM.
Hmm.
So boom, there's this guy now, and
Yeah.
then he's out there doing his thing. And then I think he made rank they moved him on, and then I had Aaron Seligman out there.
Okay.
So once again, I just run into these guys, and I mean these guys are. I mean, to me, I mean, they're my heroes. Like
Yeah.
all the guys I run into, like they're my heroes. So you got Ortega Standards, and then you got Aaron Seligman, who I loved. But these are the guys that I'm trying to measure up for them to hold these roles, and do good for them. So yeah, it was a good tour. I mean, I learned a lot on that one too.
Yeah, I like Korea. A lot of people don't, but I didn't mind it at all. Kunsan as well. But so there you go. You go to a very special place for the Air Force, which is down in the current state you're still living in. Uh,
Hmm.
Herbert Field. What's Herbert Field known for, Ryan?
I don't know that a lot of people when I was in like really knew it was there
Yeah.
because you have Eglin. Everybody's familiar with Eglin, I think. Herbert Field's a pretty small base, very small base, but the level of teams, I mean, it wasn't that great. So when I just saw a lot of resources at Herbert, training wise that we could touch on, where now I'm back in a stateside Air Force base. So now I have access to go make relationships with another base, Eglin. The police. There's just to me, I just always see that there's a lot of resources, and if there's no lack of resourcefulness, then I can use this to my advantage. So or for the team's advantage that now I'm a trainer or KM. So then once again, I hit the jackpot, and there's a guy up the road because the 7th Special Forces Group had moved in. So a guy named Chris Hardigan, they call him Big Country, but he was a Special Forces trainer, and he moved in there. And so, I mean, this guy's amazing. So then I got to be under his tutelage. So I was lucky enough to boom. I just keep hitting the jackpot as far as people to be around.
So that starts opening you up to new ideas, different methodologies,
Big time.
really outside the box at that point. Um,
Yeah.
Not your traditional, how we train a dog in MWD world, but more of a special operator kind of feel. I get that.
And behind the scenes because he was the lead trainer at the Von Leet kennels. So then I'm
Okay.
getting to see, well, how does a vendor work? What do
Yeah.
you do there? He actually took me up there and I competed alongside him and some other special forces guys on their team at the VLK Olympics, which
Yeah.
has a ton of people. I got to go up there for a buy trip. So a lot of opportunities were opened up that, like a lot of people in the military maybe only get the lack on experience, but
Right.
now this guy's let me in on the door, like you said, for all these other things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm super, super grateful.
And I think that's when I ran into you again. I think you were the KM for Herbert Field, or maybe the
Hmm.
trainer. We did a canine competition somewhere on the Gulf Coast. You guys were
Yeah,
hosting.
I mean, I was talking to my girlfriend about this last night, but we're just talking about how, if you're letting things like lack of funds get in the way,
Yeah.
because they're not trying to throw a lot of money at things, but
Right.
it's like, okay, look, we have all these resources here. I have a network of people I know that they care about me, that are always so willing to contribute. So I was able to host and design 2 competitions down here, and I was very lucky that I had a network of people to touch on where they were more than willing to come and contribute their time and make it to where because before that I went to the VLK Olympics and I saw what Kenny Licklider could do with the talent that he had and his resources. So I go, well, I think I could do something like that where I'm at. It's just if I'm going to try to depend on somebody else to design it, or I'm going to try to depend on, just to have the base at my disposal, then it's not going to be that great. But I always looked at it like this when I was in the military. Like I could jump on the phone with anybody. So I'm on the phone with the high school. I'm on the phone with the Gulf Area Marine Park. Like I'm looking to see what can we do where if I was a handler, I'd want to show up to this and be like, this was a really amazing experience.
Yeah,
So that's what I
it's
try
so
to
it's
do.
so easy to get caught up in just the everyday grind of training your dog, just staying on base, working with only your trainer, your kennel master, and just you know you only get as much as they're willing to put out to you or they're able to put out to you.
Right.
No offense to them, but sometimes it's just not enough. Um, and then we get this misconception a lot of times in the military that we're the best of the best, and we're okay. But when you broaden that horizon to our civilian counterparts or those that work special operations or
Mhm.
any of those, you just all you're doing is bettering yourself for that, learning more. I know I have from those same communities, man. I've learned so much from them. I never stop learning, as I don't think you do either. I see you talk about it on some of your channels all the time. Um, but Herbert Field, you stayed there quite a while, man. That was a
Just happened to work out that way. Yeah, it just happened to work out that way. And since it did, I just figured that while I was here and with the resources that we had and the relationships that we had, that, why not try to make the best of it? So, and then having a relationship with the 7th Special Forces Group,
yeah,
it just opened the door for, at that time, a lot of training opportunities to prepare the dog teams that we had to go overseas, which
yeah,
they went, the ones that we had, and they did some amazing things. So I was like that when I met the special forces trainer, Chris Harding, and I was like, well, who is this guy? Like, if you're not from the 341st, you're not like in the conventional military. I was like, well, who is this guy? And then I was around him and I was like, oh, like there's a whole nother world too.
oh,
So, and I was like, well, now that that's opened my eyes, like I want to get into that and I want to see like, well, who else is out there? So yeah, 7 years at Herbert Field, but 7 fruitful years, and we were able to do a lot of good things. And I'm proud of the time that, I'm proud of all my people that were there because I wasn't always the easiest to work for either.
so I've a couple times unknown to you, I've run into some of the handlers that you've been their trainer or their kennel master, and I could see your isms in them, man. So good job. And yeah, whether they knew I was watching or not doesn't matter. But definitely, most definitely, I could tell, especially with the event that you guys hosted that Daryl Hagan and I came to. I
Hmm.
could tell your guys, they act just like you.
Right.
They act just like you. So that's great to see and amazing. So, you spend your time out there and thank you for your service, man. I know it's not easy. It's not easy grinding that long, especially in K9 world when you're doing things the right way. Anybody can sit back at the kennel, put their feet on the desk and talk about the good old days. But, it's not like you ever stop contributing back to K9 or to your people or to your the airmen or sergeants that worked under you. So it's good to see. And I knew when I ran into you back at that event that we were at, I knew I said he's just going to continue to do great things, and you have. And so once you got out of the military in 2018, you went over to Department of State for a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Talk to me about that. How was that?
So yeah, got out of the military. Things were going well for our business on our off-duty time. So as far as doing that, it was more so just trying to build some capital to put into the business.
Yeah,
So it was an interesting experience because I believe that A-Rod was also in that's called SOC.
yeah,
So you go there, middle of nowhere, Virginia.
right,
You're trying to pass this test. So originally, I was just supposed to go over there as a handler, and then when I went over there as a handler, the lead trainer was like, "Well, you should just be one of the trainers." And
right.
so I took on that role, and I had 77 teams there. They were from all over, so you're just dealing with a lot of like in canine, a lot of like male a lot of man emotional problems. So these guys are from every branch, or maybe they were police officers. But at that time, I was pretty confident in my abilities, and I always try to be very innovative as far as the training or keeping it
Right,
fresh.
right.
So it was in the time that I was there, it was good. And then I also ran into the other A-Rod,
Mhm.
who was at Lackland, who I liked a lot.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it was just another way to get some experience and see, where everybody stacked and where everybody ranked and try to learn as much as I could. So,
Yeah.
but you are over there in the embassy.
Right.
You don't have the support of the conventional military anymore. So I do remember when I was over there when I knew this probably wasn't the life for me was they did tell us we were going to get overran, and they told us we were going to be overran within like 6 hours.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I said, well, what's the plan? And they go, it's really not a plan. There's like a quick reaction force here for the Marines, but these militias are going to overrun the embassy. And so for me, I was like, yeah, I'm not so used to not having
Yeah.
the muscle of the military not behind me. So
Yeah.
I'm not joking about this, but I was going to hide in the sewer. I was like, I'm going to get in the sewer and I'm going to just tuck down until something gets here to help us.
Yeah.
And you don't, most people don't even know what it feels like to feel that way. And so I
Right.
was like, yeah, that's my cue that I should probably go back to
Yeah. Yeah.
America.
No A-10s coming to save you, man.
No.
You're on your own.
So when you don't have that, or that you forget that that's even a thing in your life, I was like, yeah, that might be it for me.
Yeah,
So,
no worries. I get that. But from that, you moved back to Florida, right?
hmm
And you've already got your business kind of started. Uh,
hmm
and then we roll into what you have today is Frequency Canine. I know you had another name for it before, but talk to me about like what was your motivation for one, the name. I like that name, Frequency Canine. And two, like what's the mission statement for you over there?
So it all started when myself and my co-owner, April Walker, she was a handler at Herbert Field, and then she became the trainer. And I mean, we always just had a great rapport. She always just worked really hard. She's super smart. She's a lot smarter than I am. She's great. But somebody had suggested that we do some pet training in our off time, and I really snubbed my nose at that. And I was like, well, I don't even know what they do. I know we just do canine, and we're so focused on that. So. Um, we decided to do it because I don't know what you'd call him, not a friend, but somebody from one of the other bases just recommended it. So we start doing it in our off time. We start to see what's offered, which isn't that great in the pet world. So and we saw that a lot of people were pretending to come from the world that we come from. There was a guy who said that he trains all the police and military people in our area, and it was just some pet trainer guy that we'd never even heard of. So we're like, well, these people are really being let down. So we went and confronted him. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But I just went right down to his business and was like, who are you? And so we had a lot of experiences like that in the beginning, which kind of propelled us to go, well, let's do this better. And plus, there wasn't a whole lot of emphasis on anybody actually teaching the owner. So I remember from my experience, being terrible at canine was that if no one's going to put any emphasis on teaching you, and there's just going to be a board and train, or you're just going to be in this group class, then there's really no way that this is going to be successful. And I do believe that somebody that's dealing with a reactive dog or those issues is dealing with a lot more stress on a daily basis than even somebody that's overseas doing their job.
Oh
Because
yeah.
at least if you're there, you're confident about what you can do and you know the consequences, whereas the average person is like, this is a nightmare.
Well, and they're
So,
dealing with their home, their family, everything
yeah,
that's going into the
liability.
house, right? A lot of liability and not having the same kind of support system. So yeah, please continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so we had started under a different name, and then we realized that it was a name that was already taken that somebody else owned in like Michigan. So we couldn't really have the name, and then it became really tough for us to find a name because so much stuff in the dog world is taken, like your traditional names that you think of. So we paid for an agency even to come up with a whole mood board and a name. And at hour 11 when we were about to have this launch, April was like, same story. She's like, "What do you think about this name?" And I said, "I'm good." And she's like, "Oh, so you just want to run with this?" And I was like, well, yeah, like, isn't that the plan? And she's like, you're just in love with it, huh? I said, well, no. I said, but I thought this is what, yeah, right. I was like, well, this is what we're gonna go with. And she goes, you're just fine with settling. And I was like, what do you want to do here? So we went to the library actually and really sat down and I was like, well, really, let's think about this. So frequency canine is everybody wants to be on the same frequency as their dog, no matter what kind of dog work you do. And everybody wants good behaviors to happen more frequently. So I was like, let's call it Frequency Canine. I said, let's just run with that. She liked it, I liked it, and then I think for any brand, it's up to the people that have it to really, like you said, as far as mission statement or our unique value proposition to kind of show the world like what that means. So
Right.
what it does mean is it's really trying to give people the best education that you can on helping them understand dogs, dog training, and how come your dog, does what you want it to do? How come it doesn't? And understanding the process of it. So that relationship.
Yeah, no, and I've I've been dabbling with that for a few years, and I like it. My wife tells me I have the worst business plan in the world because I'll go out to a session with someone and I'll fix everything they're doing in one session, and I tell them you don't need me, just do what I told you to do, and you'll be okay.
Right.
And sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't, but. No, and I can appreciate that, man. It's not easy running a business. It's not easy getting out of something that's comfortable, like the military.
Hmm.
It's not easy getting out and making ripping that Band-Aid off and going, but it's when you're confident in your ability, and thankfully, you had some time with that where you were still, like you said, building your worth over with the Department of State while your
Hmm.
business was building. So, man, I'm really, really happy for you. Um, so you guys primarily focus on pet obedience and behavioral issues, or what else are you dipping into?
Yeah, really. I mean, I think the beyond the obedience piece for a lot of people is behaviorally, they want their dog to be sound. I
Yeah,
mean, they're not looking for the average person isn't looking for this military style of
right,
obedience where, and nobody wants to micromanage their dog, and a pet dog doesn't want to be micromanaged.
yeah,
It just becomes too much for all parties. So if you're going to train these dogs and you're going to help these people, you've really got to train that dog for the lifestyle
right,
that that person has, regardless of the breed or who they are. I mean, right now I even have some clients where they've got a 6-month-old German Shepherd. He's got some working lines, and they're in their 70s.
yeah,
So I've got to make that come together for, well, you have this dog, you have your lifestyle. How do we make that meet? And another thing is, and I do believe this, is that so many people now are, if they don't have what they feel like is an infinite amount of time or this giant backyard, they want to rehome their dog. And I do believe that there should be resources that dog trainers or someone provides as, like for instance, I do jujitsu. If a child wants to do jujitsu because that's an outlet, a parent can take them there and someone else can provide that.
right.
Whereas maybe they can't and they don't need to feel crushed because they don't have the ability to do it. So I believe with a lot of these behavioral cases or these dogs that trainers can provide a space or an opportunity for that dog to get its fill throughout the day, whereas the average person can't provide that. And I know in military canine and canine, I always tell people that these dogs don't have these issues because their different cups are filled every day. They do OB, they play, they
Right.
do detection, they do bite work. So if your energy is spent there in these productive roles, then you're not looking to react to other dogs, you
Yeah.
know.
Dogs need a job, man.
Yeah.
They need a job. They need something to do. And that was one thing I would run into a lot when I was training pets is I'd run into just like, for instance, a nurse that worked at the ER, worked 16-hour shifts and had a big German Shepherd sitting in a cage all day and was
Right.
very concerned that the dog is wild I said, well, of course he's going to be wild. He's been cooped up all day. You got to have a plan. That dog has to have a sense of a job, some normalcy. Uh, but you're right. You tailor it to whatever is needed. So if it's, a 70-year-old couple or a single mom, whatever the case. And I think that's what a lot of pet owners, or I'm sorry, pet trainers miss in that is it should be tailored to what that individual person needs. And I've heard this quote so many times, and it's so true, is train the dog in front of you, right? Train the dog in front of you for what that client needs, and you're going to continue to be successful. Well, man,
Well, so much so with that is really lets these people down is that most of your traditional pet trainers are just reinforcement-based trainers.
yeah,
So there was a lady the other day on one of these groups where she's trying to rehome the dog because the dog kills chickens. So I had messaged her and I said, do you really want to rehome the dog? And has anybody ever worked with you on this? And she goes, well, we worked with a trainer on it for 4 years.
yeah.
So I go, 4 years. I said, what did they do? And she goes, well, dog wants to go kill chickens, and now he's got a treat or food or a toy, and the dog goes, forget that. Like I want to go kill those
I want the
chickens.
chicken. Yeah,
Right. And so she goes, he exposed him around chickens, just walking him around. So it's like, well, great. Now you're walking him around. He can't wait to get loose so he can kill a
right,
chicken.
right,
Or she goes, he had me build a fence or a wall. So the dog went over the wall. So then they made it higher. So then the dog dug under. And I was like, now you're just adding complexities to this to make that even the dog wants it even
right.
more.
It's
I
a
said, at
challenge.
no point,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
I was lucky to run into him if you've ever met or heard him, but man, he's sharp. He did a seminar at the Seven Special Forces group, and I was around there for 2 days. It was Pat Nolan.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So Pat Nolan says that, and he's right, is that I don't get to choose the value of the reinforcer if that's all that's there. So this dog goes, look, if this is on the menu or it's
Right.
accessible, I want the chicken. Unless
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody is going to make it where this isn't a thing for me, I'm going to choose chicken.
Right.
So
100.
like I'd spoken to her is when I was overseas and working is like there's stuff out there. There's dogs, there's goats, there's chickens. If the dogs think that that's an option versus looking for bombs
Yeah.
off leash, then here we go. But a lot of the training is so reinforcement based that these people are never given access to show a dog that look, you're not allowed to do that.
Right. Right. Here's a
Yeah, it's
it's
just
called a
literally
correction. It's
right.
called a correction.
And you're just competing against something that the
Yeah.
dog goes, I understand that you want me to value this more, but I really don't.
Yeah, but I really don't.
So,
I might do it while you have me on leash for a quick minute. But once you go, I'm going after it again.
and I think that's the problem with a lot of the training that's out in the civilian side is that in the military, I could tell everybody what to do. I was in charge.
Right.
If I was your handler, you can tell me what to do and I have to do it. But
Right.
in the civilian world, I find that if I try to tell people what to do, they might just go the other way with it.
Yeah, and then
So
you're losing business, man.
and I keep the training very. I'm always asking questions to them. I want them to come up with the answers,
Yep.
and if they can come up with the answers and it makes sense to them because they stated that,
Right.
then they're more inclined to do it versus me going, do this, do that. Here's your homework, and then they go, eh.
Yeah.
So I'm very big on. I'm not going to tell you what to do. What I am going to do is propose these things, and if they make sense, then you have the right to do it. But if it doesn't work out the way you want it to,
Yeah.
you're literally doing something that doesn't make sense. If you get in the car right now and you don't put your seatbelt on, I mean, if you make that clear to somebody and they get in an accident and they get hurt, people don't want to do things that don't make sense. But when they come to those conclusions on their own, or when they form a belief on their own, then you don't have to be all over their ass telling them what to do or keeping up on them. Then they're going to probably, the thing with, I feel like whether it's canine or whether it's pet owners, and even with us and what we do is that at some point you don't know who's going to be really good or dedicated. You just provide the space and the opportunity, and those people will show you whether or not they're that person.
Right.
So I find that even with the civilians that I work with is that some of the best people that I've ever trained were not the people that I would have just thought would be, those people. They showed that. Even me bringing up how bad I was. If they could have pushed their chips in, Nick Alinger and Jason Wingy would not have thought it was me.
Right.
But if you provide the space and the opportunities, the people will show themselves whether or not they're worthy.
Yeah.
So,
So,
but you also have to be an effective communicator, and that's where I see a big drop with canine guys is they are so used to telling people what to do and when to do it. And the thing I always ask them in the civilian side is, well, if I tell somebody what to do and they don't do it, what's the consequence?
right.
And it's like, there isn't any. So you might as well learn how to communicate with these folks and get them to form their beliefs because you're that good of a teacher.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what it is. It's teaching, finding different methods to teach different people to get through to them. And at the end of the day, we want our clients to be successful, right? We
Mhm.
want them to tell their friends. We want to be proud of them. We want to see them grow. And it's because we're K9 core through and through, right? I don't want to see anybody fail in K9. But you're right, man. All you can do is lay out the plan, the space, the opportunity, the time. And if they really want it, they're going to come get it. There were a lot of times where I would be training a civilian pet owner, and I'd leave them a training plan, and they never touch it. And they just want to keep paying me once a week to keep coming out. But
Right.
I've had some that take the training plan, and in the middle of the week, they're calling me asking me about the training plan.
Hmm.
What? So that's the ones they're going to progress. And a big thing right now, and I'm not sure if you're into it at the moment, but it's the scent work, right? Uh,
Right.
AKC scent work, and I didn't know about it until recently. So I was like, "This is really cool, man. This
Right.
is this is basically detection work with different odors that are not explosive or not narcotic, but it lets the community go out and be a part of a club, just like they would in agility and
Yeah.
what so, guys like you and me that came from that military background that are now in the civilian world of pet training, that's something you can also dip your toes into because you should at this point know how to imprint a dog
Hmm.
and then move them all throughout the areas. And it's not, I think it's like four odors from what I saw. I'm not really up on it. I just kind of briefed through it real quick and was
Hmm.
looking at it. But have you done any of that, Ryan?
Yeah, I've done a big thing like I mean if Bill Gaskins has a pretty good operation with Integrity Noseworks where
Yeah,
he comes from our world and that's a bulk of what he does now is he does civilian scent work. So he
yeah.
puts a lot of time into it. I think he's actually in Germany right now.
Oh wow.
I did a class with it. And then I think the thing that interested me with it was there's a tool out there that I like called a canine wallet, and it just builds a lot of value for the dog to go find and detect like their own food, and they bring
Yeah,
it back to the owner, and the owner is able to pay. But it makes, as long as it's something where it's more interactive for the dog and the person, which I think most good canine handlers would say the most fun that they would have doing, or most, I don't want to say stressful, but stressful in a good way, was doing detection. Like
yeah.
that's a lot of fun to,
Right,
maybe not the most fun to run into these problems where you have to maintain a percentage.
right,
But when you're working with a dog and collaboratively to go find this thing,
right.
then, that's an event where you guys get to work as a team together.
And,
So
and isn't
anything
it
that you can
still
do to improve
amazing?
that.
Isn't it
Yeah.
still amazing to this day? I still get a boner when a dog finds it, man. I
All
I,
right.
I get super excited about it, man. I still respond the same way. Respond the same way today to it as I did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Detection is amazing to watch that dog, you know, go through that process, strategize, figure it out, work
Yeah.
through obstacles, work through anything, any kind of distractors or environmental issues, and still give that response. So yeah, 100%, man.
And
That's
it's fun because I guarantee any time that you've ever spoken about it to somebody and described or explained it,
yeah,
it's so much more you're passionate and excited to talk about it versus like how do we get a dog to sit?
yeah, 100%, man,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So what's next for you, man?
Um, I mean, really for me, the one like even how the Frequency Canine name is that I'd asked some folks this a while back, but I was like, if there's one skill that you could master, what would it be? And everybody's got their different answer, but for me, it's always communication.
Yeah,
So I feel like the biggest shift that you can make in the dog world, whether it's helping canine teams or whether it's helping civilians, is that if you can be the best communicator possible as far as teaching, then you can make a difference on the people that you're teaching, and then they can pay it forward and take those lessons and pass it on. So
yeah,
for me, it's always about I'm just always trying to listen and learn and pick up things and just be a better teacher and a better trainer for everybody that I come in contact with. So they don't, not that you shouldn't have to spend some time or have your own experiences, but
Mhm.
if I can take that time or experience and I can shape it in a way and help, describe things or explain things or set these a lot of analogies or examples, then it just helps them. I mean, even
Yeah,
the gentleman or couple that I just came from where he's in his 70s. He was a head surgeon for a hospital forever. They've
Mhm.
owned German Shepherds their whole life. I think it's huge to understand the background of people, to understand how to work with them or teach them,
yeah,
because he's in his 70s.
yeah,
And you're not just going to go into this guy's house and just tell him what to do because you're a subject matter expert. And he's
right,
owned shepherds his whole life.
yeah,
And he also understands what it means to do things at a precise level because he works on sports cars and he was a surgeon. So if I can take those things
yeah,
and I can shape the teaching to where he can understand how to be the best owner for this dog through what he's already done in his life,
right,
then it's not me butting heads like so much of canine work is that
yeah,
two people are butting heads and everybody wants to be right, nobody wants to be wrong, nobody even wants to be vulnerable enough to begin with to
right,
take in the instruction. I mean, even you, like with what I know about you is yeah, I understand that the background that you come from is work ethic.
yeah,
I know that you have a strong work ethic. I know that you're passionate about what you do. So, in order to relate with people, I think you have to relate with people and understand them as human beings before you can even step in there to start teaching them. So
yeah.
that's a big emphasis for me.
100%, man. And when you get that client on the phone and you're talking to them for the first time, that's you're kind of interviewing them,
Yeah.
kind of interviewing them. Okay, so where'd you come from? What'd you do? And you're right, man. I'm gonna talk to a surgeon a different way than I'm gonna talk to the guy that drives a pickup or drives a semi truck. How can you relate what you want them to do with that dog to what they already know? And I think that's a good point to have, man. And I've tried to do that most of my career. Any handler I've had in the past that worked for me or I train, I find out their history. I find out about them. Do
Mhm.
you have kids? All these kind of things because it matters because I can relay it later in training, right?
Well, I watched the interview with you where you said, what was the first dog you ever worked?
Rico Whiskey 077.
Before that, you said you
Oh,
were
my bucket. Yeah,
right.
the
So I
ammo
had a
can.
group class last Saturday, and informing these people that, hey, that's the first dog I ever worked with an ammo can, and
Yeah,
that you have to do this in front of people.
that's
So
right.
when you're having people in a group class come up in front of each other and they don't want to be awkward, they're a little
Right,
nervous. It's
right.
like, hey, I've been down that road and I've
Yeah,
had to work in an ammo can. So
yeah,
they're like, it just puts them at ease to
yeah,
go up there and just feel more comfortable. And if they're more comfortable, then they can take in the information and they can just be better overall. But getting people out of their comfort zone and
yeah.
helping them understand that, like, look, whatever you think about me, it wasn't always this.
Yeah, no, I understand that, man. I do some training right now for a canine security company. I'll train with them a couple nights a week, and some of the handlers, they're relatively new, and they beat themselves up so much if they make a mistake. And I'm like, hey, bro, just let it go. It's all right. Just relax. It's not that big a deal. We're gonna run another trial, and we'll recover that, right? But
Mhm.
I think it's just how you approach people and how you talk to people. It's different if you're a military instructor instructing military people versus being out of the military and running a business and trying to teach people and learn. And even as a military instructor, I was never that instructor to be 10-2-8. Here I come. I'm coming to
Right,
get
right,
you. Like that's just not me. Were there moments where that had to happen? Absolutely, 100%.
right.
But yeah, man, being a good communicator is the best way because we're asking them to do the same thing, right? We're asking them to be a good communicator to their dog. Um, because most dog problems that I see in my career are communication issues. The dog is confused. They don't understand really what you want them to do. Uh,
Right.
and we're not relaying that message properly, man. But
Well, you know who's great about that you interviewed, and I love that interview was and he's so good at this, is A-Rod.
yeah,
A-Rod is personable. He understands how to communicate with people in any arena. And
yeah.
I mean, it's hard to find anybody that has anything negative to say about him.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun, man. You probably really like the story where Brian Thayer got punched in the mouth.
Yeah, I was listening to that.
Yeah, that was amazing. And yes, he is still banned from that bar. I checked. But yeah, man. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up with you, man. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but hey, Ryan, I'm so proud of you, man. I always have been. You are a rock star among K9. Whether you're in the civilian life doing pet dogs or training detection or patrol dogs, you always had an instinct for it that I could see, and I saw that early on in you. Um, I wish we could have spent more time together in our careers, but paths go different ways. But I was always thinking about you, man. I was always highlighting you, and I want to continue to do that. So when we get done with this interview, please send me all your social media information. I'll make sure it gets attached here. And if you guys are in that area in Florida near Pensacola, right,
Yeah, the Emerald Coast.
and you have a dog issue or wanted some extra training or some advanced training, and you don't call Ryan, I can't help you. Good luck with that. Um, he is one of the best, one of the premier, and all the guys that he had mentioned earlier, from Pat Nolan to Chris Knight to Chris Willingham, they're legends within themselves, and some of them will be on the show. But I want to thank you again, man. Thank you for letting me have the honor of interviewing you. I hope to get out to see you soon. Um, you're not too far from me, so I'll try to coordinate something for a visit, brother. I'll let you have the last words.
Thank you to everybody that's ever had an impact on me. And the biggest thing that taught me, well, two biggest things was one, everybody wants to be blessed, but somebody else has to bless you. And so rather than that, how are you going to be a blessing to other people today? And that's what all the people that have impacted me have been to me is they've been a blessing. And then two, because I've been around so many great people, I always speak on loyalty to intelligence. So, I'd have to be loyal to all these guys that I ran into are people that made an impact on me. So if you're loyal to intelligence, then that means that you have no ceiling, that you can just keep taking in information and you can keep learning and you're always just seeking the best way to do it. So once again, thank you to everybody. Thank you. And everybody else that's always had an impact on me because without it, I don't know where I'd be, but people didn't give up on me and, that made all the difference.
Amen to that, brother. I appreciate you. All right, my man. Take care. I'll see you soon.
Too easy.
All right, later.